Hi guys, this is Mike Hibbert back with another Python Django tutorial for you. And as we're not going to be able to publish a video on Friday, I'm going to do it a couple of days early. So here we are on Wednesday with an ahead tutorial for you. Now, last week we covered the subject of Celery and using RabbitMQ to run long-running processes in the background instead of tying up your website's resources. This week we're going to take that a little step further and show you how you can actually monitor the progress of your tasks so that you can send information back to your website and actually be able to give feedback to the user about the progress. Now, last week we created a task that just basically added a couple of numbers, but this week we're going to create a different task that just basically counts up to 100. And the reason why we're going to do that is because we're going to demonstrate a long running process using the sleep method, but then we're going to actually update its progress within the queue and query that through our web page. So the first thing we need to do is create the task. So here we are inside of our Celery underscore test app in the tasks.py file. I'm just going to add another decorator in there and another function that's associated with it, and it's just going to be do something long. There's no arguments to the function, it's just basically going to do something that takes a while. So for that, I'm going to create a for loop that just basically counts from 0 up to 100, and inside of there I'm going to use this new part of the Celery module that I've imported up here. So as you can see, from Celery I've imported current task. Now with current task, after I've done a sleep for a little while, I'm going to use current task to update state, and I'm going to pass in some information about its progress, and then inside of the progress I'm going to keep two pieces of information. So I'm going to keep current, which is going to be equal to I, so it's going to count from 0 up to 100, and then total, which is going to be what's the total amount it's going to count up to. So when we get to the web page, if you've got some JavaScript that's looking for an answer to what a progress bar should be like, then you can then work out in comparison to this what I should look like in terms of how a progress bar would grow. So if your progress bar is 300 pixels wide, and the total amount of progress that's possible within this task is 100, you can then divide it by 3 and then work out how many pixels I would be equal to, and do stuff like that. So the reason why I'm passing those two things is because we want to know the current progress, but we also want to know how much of the current how much of a total progress is possible in comparison to the other. I hope that makes sense anyway. So that's our task. It's a very simple task. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to then start and plug things in terms of the web side of things. Now, we're not going to build a view, a proper view for this. We're just going to basically create a URL that we can call, that'll set off the task, and then that'll pass you straight through along with the task ID through to a URL that will basically give us a JSON response. So then you can kind of have a little bit of an insight into how we actually pass JSON over through to our JavaScript. So in our views, let's define these two different URLs. So the first one is start the Celery task, as always with a request for the argument. We're going to start a task by do something long dot delay, like we did in the last tutorial. But this time we're going to assign the result to a task object, and this basically will pass us back an asynchronous request. And then we're going to do a response redirect, which we covered right at the beginning of the tutorial series. We're going to redirect to a string where we've concatenated the salary progress URL with a query string on there saying task ID equals the task's ID property, and then we've just basically bung that into a string by passing that through. So that's how we get the ID. If you wanted to save that for a much later date, then you could probably store that in a database somewhere and associate it with the user, and then if they had some kind of a dashboard page on their website, then you could go through and pull out all of the available tasks that are in progress and put that onto the page for them and show the separate IDs progress on there in a form of bars or just a percentage or something like that. So you don't necessarily have to kind of lose that task ID. You can store it in a database, and it's just basically a string. It'll be a Unicode string when it gets passed over in this case. So it's a load of numbers and X's and Y's and uppercase and lowercase, so that sort of stuff. So it wouldn't harm you to put it in the database. So the next URL or view we're going to make is monitor salary task. So this is the URL we're going to use to actually do the whole what progress are we at. So this actually maps to this function here, and we're going to define that in the URLs how that maps over. But I've made it shorter because it's just for the sake of laziness, so easier to type in. So if task ID is in the get request, which it should be if it's been passed along through here, you should see task ID in there. Get the task ID out of there. If it's not, then just pass a response back saying no task ID passed. If we've been successful, use the task ID alongside an async result. Now the async result is, oh excuse me, I've just scrolled all the way the wrong direction. The async result is stored in salary.result. So if you want to pull that in, then we also need to pull in JSON, or simple JSON in this case, because I'm going to do a JSON result. And of course we pulled in our task there. Moving back to the view, we've done our async result. We've used the task ID to tell the async result, get this out of the current queue with the ID of this. So that's how we've retrieved the task again after having created it over here in the start salary task. We've kept the ID and now we've retrieved it from the queue. So here we can query, we can say, does it have a result or what's its state? So we've decided that if there's nothing in the result, pass the state back into this data variable. And the reason why we're doing that is because when we pass in the data to our JSON dumps function, it'll create us a nice little JSON object that will get passed back. And notice how we're just changing the MIME type for the HTTP response to application JSON. So it's not going to try and put a header and a title and all that sort of stuff around that by default. The browser's going to know that this is JSON. And that's pretty much it. That's our function created. Oh, gone the wrong way. Okay, so in our URLs file, and this is the URLs file for our Django test module, we're just going to add the two URLs. So the first one, excuse me, is for salary_test, and this relates to the start salary task. So that's basically going to map to that URL, and we'll call this one initially. This will start everything off and redirect through to the next URL, which is salary progress, and it will append that the task ID to the end of that URL, and we can just pull that out using the request object as we did just here. Okay, so very simple to do, but it lets you know how you can actually pull out information and monitor your tasks on the website. So let's just give that a test. We need to run our celery daemon in the background. As you can see there, it's just waiting on monitoring RabbitMQ. If we press the run button here on mine, this is the pro version of Wing ID, by the way. So if you're using something like the 101 version, you'll still need to do the manage py run server from the command line at this point, but I'm cheating. So we've run that. It says the server's up and running. That's great. So if we do the celery test, we go in like that. That'll redirect us, and as you can see, the task ID's on the end. It says that the current status is pending. The celery queue monitor has said that it's in the queue. So let's just do a quick refresh in the browser just to check what it is. It's saying it's 50% at the minute. I'll do another refresh. There you go. More refreshes. It's gradually counting up to 100% done. So you can see that using this, you can then finally get yourself a nice bit of JSON passed through. If you're using jQuery, that's very easy to decode. And then you just basically got to update your user interface on the web page. So that's a very simple and very straightforward tutorial for this week. Like I say, it's ahead of schedule because I'm not going to be able to release this on Friday, so you get it 2 days earlier. So congratulations to you. If this was educational, then please not lick the like button, click the like button. And if you want to know more about the tutorials in the series, then please click the subscribe button, and we'll update you as soon as there's a new one out, which is probably next week. Thanks for watching.